Good evening and welcome to the NDTV Dialogues, a conversation of ideas. This week we focus on an idea which revolutionized India, the Right to Information Act. 10 years on, we look at its achievements. We look also at what needs to be done for the RTI to be as relevant as it was 10 years ago. Joining me tonight is Aruna Roy. Her organization was really behind the whole drafting of this act. She is also in the National Advisory Council at that time. I'm also joined by Satyanand Mishra, former Chief Information Commissioner, also former Secretary of the Government of India. Also with me, Sanjeev Chaturvedi, Magsaysay Award winner, as is Aruna Roy. And Sanjeev Chaturvedi also, of course, has seen both sides of the RTI as a government officer and also somebody who used it when his promotions were denied. Also with me, Vivek Garg, National Convener of the RTI cell of the BJP, and he's filed many crucial RTIs, including during the 2G time. And with me, perhaps the man who's one of the most prolific RTI users, Subhash Agarwal, has become a household name for his many petitions that have exposed judicial corruption, political corruption, and many other issues. Thank you all very much for joining me. Aruna Roy, as somebody who was there really when this baby was born and has been there, well, it was first thought perhaps never dreamt that it would actually go through, but you've been with it through these 10 years. What's your focus now? How do you think this act can actually be rejuvenated? How can it grow? What are the big changes you'd like to see now?
I think the first thing is to accept that it has made a change. Because when I talk to my colleagues and when I talk to people, the first thing they always wail and diss me. So I want to remind everybody that 80 lakh people use the law. People use it who are illiterate, people use it in contentious areas like in Chhattisgarh, in Jammu and Kashmir, in Manipur. People use it in the remotest parts of Himachal Pradesh and Uttaranchal, and so it's a law that's come to stay. Nobody knows who started it, who wrote it, but they know it's their law. And it is the only law which is really owned by people as their law. I remember one lawyer from Chandigarh, when the first set of amendments were being proposed in 2006, barely 10 months after the law came, we were sitting in Jantar Mantar and he said to us that, we said, why are you so committed to protecting the law? He said, अरे भाई इतने साल बाद तो एक कानून मिला है जिसमें मैं सरकार के ऊपर पेनल्टी लगा सकता हूँ, छोड़ूंगा क्या मैं इस लॉ को?
Did you ever think it would happen? Did you ever think in your years, because when you left the IAS and you first became somebody who actually went around India looking at issues of villages and people, did you ever think this could be law in India?
Actually, the perception that it could be a law came from ordinary people. See, I went to this small village. I live in a village, by the way, and I live in a mud hut in Devdungri, which is the MKSS headquarters. And over there, we live with people, we fetch water, we cook our own food, we fell the wood, we do everything. In that process with lots of people, then I had a colleague who's now passed away, Mohan Ba, used to sing songs. He was a Kabir Bhajanchi, illiterate Dalit man, and he said, look, if those records come out forever, we are going to be liars. We sat on 2 hunger strikes asking for minimum wages, asking for records, and we didn't get it. So the perception of the crucial nature of the information came from people. We also knew it, but it came from them. And he sang this fabulous song in which he said, "Pehle wala chor to ऊंट पर बैठ के जाता था, आजकल के चोर तो बंगले में घुस गए." He said, "पहले वाले चोर तो बंदूक से मारते थे, आजकल के चोर तो कलम से मारते हैं." Now this kind of realization spread. So for me, it was an amazing thing that such an abstract idea, if you look at it like that, was realized in such simple terms. It's the simplicity of the law. It's the simplicity of the whole concept that really took it to every home which has used it, and to many more people who haven't used it but understand it. But I didn't think we'd get it. One lawyer in Biawar, when we were on Dharna in 1996, said to me, "देखिए, आपको तो ये कभी नहीं मिलेगा, मगर ये धरने पे बैठे रहना." So I asked him, "भाई क्यों?" He said, "कोई सड़ी गली व्यवस्था अपने कलेजे निकाल कर बाहर थोड़ा ना रखेगी, बिल्कुल नहीं होगा." So for me, it's a miracle that it happened, that there was political will, that UPA won with the communists outside, with the Congress in power, actually published a commitment called the National Common Minimum Program, in which they promised a better right to information law. And actually the NSA was able to push it through at that level, because without political will, You can't have a law.
And ironically, in UPA too, the RTI was used so much against it. But I'd like to bring in Mr. Satyanand Mishra on that point, because you've said, sir, that it's time at 10 years, it's time for a second RTI revolution. Why did you say that at a time when we know that now there are over 30,000 RTI applications, a backlog pending with the Chief Information Commissioner currently?
You know, like Arunaji, I am also extremely optimistic about the RTI, and I am also very happy that the way RTI has progressed, impacted the lives of people. But I feel that 10 years on, the government, or both at the center and the state, have found ways to, you know, deal with this. Like the government servants are good at dealing with so many things. So they have taken this law in their stride, finding ways to avoid tricky questions or controversial or very disturbing kind of information. So therefore, unless there is a continuous oversight by active civil society bodies, media, the government servants will bury it. I mean, they will give information. They will give information which is totally innocuous.
Yes.
It would still help people, but the big ticket information, which the RTI was not only to provide information to the public. It was one of the objectives in the preamble was to bring about transparency and accountability within the government. So that role will happen not in an abstract manner, by a very slow implementation of the law. It will happen only when very big issues are forced, and there is examples are created around, just as the examples had been created in the 2G case, Commonwealth Games. In many states, very important information. Mr. Subhash Agrawal himself got so much information from the Judiciary. So it is or an order was passed on political parties by the CIC. So these actually jolt the public imagination about the way the government is working. And that is what I meant.
And about the way RTI, it's an interesting point you raised on transparency. I'm just going to get in Mr. Vivek Garg on that, because you're now head of the RTI cell at the BJP. It's very different when some parties in opposition, and the BJP used RTI very effectively at that time in 2G, in coal allocations, and now when it's in government. How do you resolve that issue? Because questions were raised about the fact that the number of bureaucrats in the CIC have been cut down. Many states various governments have not filled the information commissioner post, and that there's perhaps now not so much focus on it now that the BJP is in government. Any government would not be very interested in creating a powerful alternative body which can take it on.
No, first of all, I tell you, there is no difference whether BJP is now in power or not. We are effectively using RTI. As I tell you, but what is the fact?
Against
basically,
who do you use it now?
No, we have filed against the many BJP states also. Even BJP is in central. We have filed many RTI. Even few days back, I have filed RTI against the central government whenever there is anything wrong, of course. But why the RTI Act? Basically, RTI Act is a dying act. Basically, I will tell you, being a lawyer also. There are 4 or 5 reasons why it is dying. One, CIC itself a dying body now. It's day by day it's sinking. Number 2, the act needs amendment. Like there should be a contempt proceeding whenever the orders of CIC, they are not implemented by the concerned officers and all that. There should be a contempt power with the CIC, which is not there. The fear of RTI Act is going down. Basically, that is one of the reasons. Then training. There should be training sessions on RTI. Like I go to many RWAs and all that and give them training on every Sunday. Generally, we give training to local RWAs and all that. There should be a mechanism, even there can be a course by the government, like there are so many schemes are coming that they will train RTI, give training, even 1 hour session, 2 hour session. Then the time bound decision by CIC, Madam told whether 6 months or even 8 months the appeals are pending in CIC and all that. There should be a time bound, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, there has to be a decision. Now the CIC, there is no limit. So that's why there is a big backlog of the judgment. Then the prosecution, there should be amendment in act prosecution. If the orders of CIC is not implemented by or executed by this departments, then they can be prosecuted. There should be a prosecution, even 1 month punishment, even 1 week punishment of jail and all that. Then there will be a fear of RTI Act among the corrupt officers.
I think that's an interesting point you're making, because now I think is the time to see whether it's actually going to grow or be almost shunted aside in a way. Sanjeev Chaturvedi, if I can bring you in, Since the last time you came on Dialogues, your promotion actually came through because of a court order. But you faced it both ways, because you've had to both we were an officer who had to actually answer RTIs, plus you actually used the RTI in your own case. How do you see it as a citizen's empowerment tool? In fact, in transparency, one good aspect of government has been that many, whether it's auctions, whether it's property records, more and more transparency has actually been coming to the government system in the last years.
Actually, RTI has been one of the most, I would like to say that it is a very simple, it was drafted in a very simple manner. It is one of the most user-friendly acts. And I think that in the post-independence era, this was one of the act which has touched the life of most of the population of this country. So this was, a very revolutionary type of act, and this has given a sense of stakeholding to the general people into the day-to-day affairs of the governance. There were also instances of the misuse of the RTI Act, but I think that that was a very, very small percentage, like 2 or 3%. In my tenure as CPIO or First Chapter 30 in various organizations, I found that certain times that provision related to that a person, if he is having BPL card, he can have all the information free of cost. So some people were misusing those provisions to get voluminous informations, but all those instances were very much limited. And
you didn't see it as a waste of time?
Yes. And because all the information they used to get free of cost, so they just used to arrange some person who was below the poverty line, and that person was basically used as a proxy to get all the information. So that sometime created some type of harassment to the government officials. But those instances were actually very rare. In most of the cases, or in more than 90% of the cases, I think that it was used for the bona fide purposes by the general public. And from my own case also, I can say that for officers like me or other officers who face difficulties because of performing their duties in the system, this act was basically type of a lifeline for them, whether it be the cases of the disciplinary proceedings or the cases of the ACRs or other service matters, or even in the matters which were exposed by us during our tenure, like it was the case of the corruption in the government of Haryana which I had exposed, or the cases of the AIMS. So as a follow-up matter also, so this was a very useful act for that purpose also.
You managed to actually get the documents, official documents proving it.
Yes.
In fact, I'm going to get in Subhash Agarwal and then actually look at that and how the CIC needs to be stronger. But Subhash Agarwal ji, for an ordinary citizen, because in that sense you're not a government servant, you're not a lawyer, you're just an ordinary citizen who used to write letters to newspapers. How did RTI transform it for you, and what do you think now needs to change for an ordinary citizen?
RTI Act has proved to be a lifeline for me. I was a victim of judicial torture, judicial harassment, including from a Chief Justice of India and Supreme Court judges and High Court judges. And my RTI petition was addressed to Supreme Court, and I filed it just in October 2005.
What did it ask for? What did your RTI petition ask for?
Information on action taken on my complaint against a Delhi High Court judge. And that petition became the so much highlighted in the media that now we are openly talking about irregularities and corruption in judiciary.
So there were no sacred cows left, because earlier the judiciary was completely a no-go area.
Yes.
So there were you think with RTI there is no sacred cows left?
I am very much thankful to this RTI Act, and now 10 years have passed and I have experienced so much. But my experience reveals that much needs to be improved, but we must not talk about amendments, otherwise government will dilute the act in name of amendments. We can modify the rules and it may be used effectively. Firstly, I will like to point out that lawmakers have become the lawbreakers in this country. Cases of political parties under RTI Act. The political parties which enacted this act and which legislated this act did not comply with the CIC verdict. If they were not satisfied, they must have approached the courts or amended the legislation. Nobody
the case is in the Supreme Court now, isn't it? But
no, that is also our PIL.
Which you are asking them to comply with it.
Yes.
Which you went to ask them to comply with it.
Yes. But and CIC has sufficient power, but unfortunately some information commissioners are not doing well. Present Chief Information Commissioner, he has the hearing, but not delivering verdicts for months. Mr. Vivek Garg is talking about the pendency and time-bound decision. Now, decisions are kept reserved for months, and when the decisions come, they are just in contradiction what was
I'm going to take that aspect of the political parties, because that really, I think, strikes at the heart of whether how relevant the CIC is going to be. This is almost a landmark case, and Mr. Mishra, of course, you were involved in this.
You know, our bench passed that order, and
you passed that order, and you.
Yeah, Mr. Subhas Agarwal is one of the appellants in that case. ADR was the other appellant. You know, after we passed that order, either the political parties should have challenged our order in the High Court or Supreme Court, got a stay, or complied with it. They did neither. I mean, this is absolutely
They ignored it and hoped it would go away.
It is absurd that the ruling party which brought that law into being at that time, the UPA government, the Congress party was one of the 6 parties, BJP was one of the parties, Samajwadi Party, NCP, CPM, they were all parties in that case, 6 parties. So, how strange, I mean, each one of them would from the pulpit or outside platform say that they swear by RTI, but when it comes to all that they should have done is to send a lawyer to the court and get a stay, at least for the sake of form. They would have kept the honor of the CIC that an order was passed,
yes.
Yeah, and it was stayed. As Mr. Agarwal is rightly saying, CIC passes an order and you just simply don't comply with it.